Hello everybody, it's Jeff Eichen here with the Legends of Photography in my Legacy series and our first pilot. Enjoy this series. We're going to be interviewing a gallery owner in New Orleans and supporter, Josh Pilet, and we propose to interview more original photographers and upcoming photographers in the art of photography. So stay tuned for our next episode and enjoy this pilot. Thank you, Jeff Eichen. Hello everybody, this is Jeff Eichen with The Legacy Show and the Legends of Photography. We are doing an improv trip to New Orleans and we're visiting gallery owners, and we're here today with Joshua Pilet, the owner of the A Gallery, a very prominent gallery that shows mostly black and whites and colors of the classic photographers and contemporaries. We're so pleased to be here. We're so pleased to meet Josh and to begin our project, The Legends of Photography, for our new reel for proposals to Hulu, Netflix, and other incredible social media and Hollywood outlets for our series, The Legends of Photography. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It's morning somewhere, and this is Jeff Eichen all the way in New Orleans. I'm blessed to be in the presence of a beautiful classic dedicated photography gallery. Yet again, I lived in Carmel with my father for a year or so, and during the day, and got to go to the Weston Gallery very often. Brett Weston's darkroom at 5 in the morning was burnt toast and Amidol. And so if all you know Amidol, Brett would always do an interview with his hands closed because he had black fingernails from Amidol. So it's a pleasure to be at your gallery.
My name is Joshua Pilet. This is A Gallery for Fine Photography. Founded in 1974 and still moving along quite well.
Fantastic. And of all of the, we'll just roll right into this, a reel that we're doing for our proposed Netflix series on Legends of Photography, and gallery owners that support the classic and contemporary photographers. I just, as I'm sitting here, want to know one super duper question. Of all the masters you've met in your life, what's a standout? Who's a standout?
That's a tough question because I've met most of them, but I have to say Henri Cartier-Bresson because it's also the photography I most admire, and he was just a remarkable person.
And he was a French photographer doing street work?
Yes. And he's really the first person that took to the Leica that went in the streets and just took quick pictures, never cropped them. He was finished when he shot the photograph.
Tri-X?
Probably. I don't know. He was one of the first Leica guys, and, you know.
Right. M2, M3, yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. What about Cartier-Bresson?
That's who I just spoke about.
No, you said Andre Cortez. Oh, Andre Cartier. But I thought you said Cortege. Hey, my. But we're there. We're there.
Yeah, Andre Cortez was a great man. I met him in New York, and he never came to my gallery, but we had a number of shows here back in the early 80s, late 70s, and he was a remarkable person.
When I was studying photography at the University of Oregon, Brett Weston said, go study Jeffrey with Bernard Freemesser. And he did pass away early, but he was doing dye transfers of 8 by 10 barrels of paint that were smushed in the junkyard, you know, and he was just beautiful. My teacher said, feel the light, feel the light. And so for decades upon decades, we were all going around feeling the light. And so it was a blessing for me to touch a few of the great photographers. And they told me in photography class, that Bresson said one of his minor white was windows and mirrors, and Bresson's was the precise moment.
The decisive moment was Cartier-Bresson's very famous quote about photography.
And do you know what Edward Weston's was?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Photography is when a rock is a rock. You know? I mean, you can't argue with that. And so it's a blessed day for me. My heart, I'm you know, just almost shaken a little bit. I'm not nervous. I'm just feeling really blessed to be back in the world of the Weston Gallery-ish, you know, and that you're here and that I've transported myself into here. Let's roll into some of my questions here. Today we're in the gallery for the very first show and script I have that I wrote many years ago called The Wet Side Story, and that was to tell the legacy of the original, the OGs, you know. I'm so grateful to interview one of the first owners of a classic gallery. Why is photography still emerging, and how is the nature of the art scene with photography these days?
Well, photography is bigger than ever, of course. It goes a long way for me because back in the 70s, people had hardly heard of photography. They had rarely seen an original print. And the idea of an original print was sort of new to many people. And it has grown and grown and grown. And now contemporary photography is very popular. And it's just bigger than ever. Although there are not an overwhelming amount of art galleries that specialize just in photography. Almost every art gallery, at least shows some photography.
Were you a photographer?
I still am a photographer.
What was your first camera?
Is a Nikkormat.
Whoa, plus X or Tri-X? Or FP4?
Tri-X.
FP4?
No. The Tri-X.
Microdoll?
No.
FG7? D70. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
I was at Rice University in Houston, and I was studying first to be an engineer and then to be an accountant. But my first photographs I ever took were looked at and purchased by Dominique de Menil at the Menil Foundation. And that changed the whole direction in photography. And so the minute I graduated, I came back to New Orleans and opened up this gallery.
And are you from New Orleans originally?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. So it's your native hometown. And so do you show any New Orleans photographers here?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Oh, fantastic. And what is one of your highlighted photographers? New Orleans.
New Orleans would be Barry Kaiser, or in my own work, or Bernie Imes, who's from Mississippi, but technically close enough to New Orleans.
Well, I've only been here a week. I'm going to have a series here pretty soon because it's just so colorful. I've been enjoying the doors, the landscape, and the people, and even the bayou. It was just really great to see the light in the bayou.
Well, New Orleans is a unique place.
And what keeps you dedicated to the classic state of photography? Behind glass, with with ragboard. I mean, tell us a little bit about your dedication to keeping it classic. Just like there's jazz, there's classic, and there's rock. Tell us about your.
Well, I love photography being respected for what it is. I know what it takes to make a beautiful photograph, and the importance of an original photograph. And so I like to present it as such. And so it deserves to be framed, it deserves to be lit properly, and hung beautifully in a gallery situation.
That's fantastic. And what makes your gallery a standout?
I think from the variety, from one of the first photographs ever made by William Henry Fox Talbot.
Wait. You have that photo?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to see that before I go. You better believe it.
You should. Yeah. And all the way up through the 19th century and the 20th century, Alfred Stieglitz, Edward Steichen, Julia Margaret Cameron, and then Man Ray, and Andre Cortez, and Cartier-Bresson, and rolling on through Ansel Adams and Minor White. I've had them in my gallery at one time or another, and I've managed to keep a great selection here. There's two stories of photographs to see at any given moment. Plus, you can talk to us, and we'll open up any of our drawers and show you more great original photographs. But it's the idea of seeing an original that's so important to us and to anyone who comes here, because an original is so much more important than what the modern society has become used to, which is digital, on a little phone, and hardly ever printing.
So, why black and white?
Well, black and white was the traditional form of great photography because color was so difficult in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s to produce. And it really wasn't until the 1990s when pigment transfer photographs came into being that photographs would be permanent enough in color.
You mean 100-year inks?
Yes. It was a big breakthrough for color photography.
Probably like Talbert. When I was studying photography with Bernie Freemesser at the University of Oregon in 1976, everybody, we were taught that in Brazil also there was a gentleman that invented the 100th monkey. They were born at the same time. So Canon and Epson may evolved similarly because the chemistry was at that time, it was ready to go.
Now, there were color photographers like Elliot Porter way back in the 1950s, but they printed on a type of paper that would last if you didn't put it out in the light too much.
You mean the dye transfer?
Yes. I do mean dye transfer, which was a very difficult process and very beautiful. And if you've ever seen a dye transfer, you'll be amazed.
To register it and to pull it, and
you had one layer at a time that you put on. You had to register and make it.
Was it RGB or CMYK? We don't.
The technicalities of photography, although I know it, it's of less interest to me because what matters to me is how that final photograph looks on the wall and glows. And so whether it was RMG or TV, I recorded that in my head as a memory. Because what mattered, again, I'm not repeating myself, is that finished photograph. Because its beauty on the wall, lit properly, is what mattered. And it's really what matters to any of these photographers. They go through lots of work making an original print, but it's a final print that they put their signature on that goes on the wall that matters the most.
So, in other words, a Quaker Oats can with a brass hole as a lens, pinhole. It's about content and the light.
It is about what you're shooting, what's in that photograph, and the quality of light.
Right, because there are some beauties in pinhole world.
Absolutely. There absolutely was.
So tell us a little bit about what's exciting you visually, personally right now, seeing as I was told back in the 70s, everything's been done. And then Bernie, my teacher, said, until you do it yourself.
Well, I think that's what's very important is that, great photographs will reflect the soul of the person making the photographs. And how they've lived, where they've been is what makes it so unique. And it's got to stand out. Photography, everybody shoots a camera nowadays. Everybody's got it on their digital phone. So you can shoot a photograph. That's no big deal. But to make it unique, follow through, and decide on how you're going to print it, those are the qualities that I most admire.
And we talked about black and white. and we talked about some of the global aspects. Tell us a little bit about your experience with, this is just personal, Sebastiano Salgado.
Well, Sebastião Salgado is probably one of the greatest living photographers, and maybe one of the greatest living photographers ever. You can see a number of his works on my walls, and he is from Brazil. He works out of Paris, and I find all of his work amazing. And he'll spend 8, 10 years on a subject before he publishes it to be seen. And he goes from, work in Africa, India, Asia, Europe, until even in America. And he evolved from sort of hardcore impoverished people. And my favorite series is called Genesis, which is about the planet Earth. And it's really more landscape. It does have people in it, but occasionally. And I love what he does. He just not only makes a beautiful photograph, but his commitment to making the photograph is remarkable. When you look at his photographs, you have to keep in mind that he becomes invisible in actually taking the photograph, so that he's not inflicting himself on any of the images. And I find that really, really a tremendous asset in taking photographs.
Yeah, one of my favorite photographers currently is Sebastiano. I saw Salt of the Earth.
Salt of the Earth is well recommended to everyone. It's a documentary. It's about an hour and a half long. It's well worth seeing if you want to hear someone not only speak about photography, but about life.
And it was true that not only as a dedicated and a prolific photographer going to Iraq to photograph the oil slicks and the gold mines or diamond mines, all those things are being exposed through photography, which we need to expose the world through reportage photography, like Eugene Smith in that movie, that his wife and he planted his father's plantation that was deforested, and all the trees died, and they replanted it, and it's 20 years later, there's monkeys in the trees.
This is absolutely true. He took his father's home and land, which is many acres, which was for cattle. Prior to that, it had been in rainforest. And he took the cattle off and replanted it and reworked it, and 10 years later, it was a rainforest again. Then he donated it to the country to make it a national park, what we would call a national park.
And what's the anecdote for that? What's the medicine in that to the world? What would you say? Do your photography and a little bit more?
Well, I think the beauty of this is to give it back. You can take from the world every day in anything you do, but to give back and leave something for the long term is what I most admire about Sebastião Salgado.
Well, everybody, this is Jeff Eichen. I'm going to reset the series here. It's the Legacy series, The Legends of Photography. We're talking about Sebastiano Salgado today, and we're with
Joshua Man Pilet.
And so Joshua here is kind enough to let us sit down with him, talk about my buddy that my dad lived down the street from. I have a European portfolio of my own that Brett Weston gave me. Tell us about Brett Weston.
Brett Weston was a great, great person. He was one of my first shows back in 1977, I think. And he very willingly loaned me photographs, and we did a beautiful show of his work, and he was very meticulous, and Brett was one of a kind.
With his little sunglasses and his black fingernails, and well, Brett, when I was there, he moved into a new house down the street from my father in Monterey, Carmel, California, and he had a swimming pool with a room and a window, and he was photographing nudes with the light coming from the morning sun in there.
And they were beautiful. They were very unique, and he had a way of seeing that was just so special. And of course, he had to overcome the shadow of his father, who was Edward Weston.
Well, hear me out for a second. Let's roll the dice here. I was thinking about my own father. I was thinking about sons of fathers, women of mothers, whatever. But as artists, I thought one day I woke up, and I'll tell you the story of me thinking this, coming my aha was that where Edward evolved to with his beautiful peppers, his beautiful nudes on the sand dunes, and all that stuff, um, I thought that how about every son or daughter that takes on their parents' work get to start at a certain plateau where their parents evolved to, and they carry it further.
I think that's a good description of Brett Weston because he definitely had a plateau to stand on, but he took it a whole new direction and made it his own work.
I thought Brett's abstracts were even deeper and more exploratory than his father, or just he went into a different direction. His graphics were different, more bold, not like Bill Brandt. That was pretty bold, But so tell us a little bit about portraiture and people photography, Cindy Sherman or even Eugene Smith.
W. Eugene Smith, one of the great photographers of all time, his life history, from shooting photographs of people to World War II and getting very injured. That was his last picture of World War II. And he came out of that and said, I'm not going to take any more pictures. And then one day he walked outside and saw his two children walking into the forest. And he went and got, this is 2 or 3 years after the war, he went and got his camera, took a picture, and he's back taking pictures again. And that picture he took was called Walk in Paradise Garden.
Didn't Win Bullock do a shot like that?
Well, Wynn did a lot of photographs of children also, so yes, but not, Wynn was different. Wynn was more of that classic traditional 8x10 image and the view and the size of it.
And tell us your experience of the magic of working with a large camera, with an 8x10 versus now a handheld camera, which we're trying to come up with the same spirit and moment in time.
Well, I think I've been clear to say that I don't really care what camera you use. I do admire people whether they use an 8x10 or a 35 millimeter, but it's how you use it, what you see, and how you record that moment on a piece of film or now digital to translate into a printed photograph for someone else to enjoy and get that feeling you had when you took that photograph.
But the slowdown of view cameras, of old, big, giant cameras. Ansel did Moonrise on the top of his car. And what did it take him 10 minutes to set that baby?
Well, he didn't have much time on that. One picture was very interesting for Ansel because he didn't have much time. And he had to set it all up. He couldn't find his meter.
And no live meter.
No, and he got it.
He knew that he told us in the workshop in '74 in Yosemite, he said that I knew the foot candles of the moon.
That's what he relied on in that moment. And he got probably the most viewed photograph in the world.
We were going to buy a student print of it, my father and I, when I was at the gallery in Yosemite. I was a 16x20 for $1,600.
Well, that photograph has become worth anywhere from $75,000 to $500,000, depending on the size of the print he made.
Right, and he would print it differently, he said, in his old age, depending on, he was a musician. He said to our class, and this is an Ansel quote that I remember, the landscape is my score and the photograph is my symphony.
That's correct.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, Ansel was a great person. He used 8x10 negative. He had an enlarger. His enlarger was built in such a way that it had 64 bulbs inside the enlarger. So he could run them all at once or just part of them. He was quite a printer.
You mean he could burn and dodge with his little lights?
Yeah. And he also, as far as Moonrise or any of his pictures go, I had the opportunity to see 10 or 12 of his Moonrise over Hernandez photographs, and no two of them were alike. When you actually stood there and looked across the room at him, you could see all the different changes he had made, yet they were all spectacular, all beautiful.
It was that precise moment. Before we wrap up here, it's been a pleasure to be with you this morning and to come into your gallery and to share my work with you also. We'd love to do a little walkthrough with you of your gallery. We'll let our beautiful Kim just walk around with us, and there's sound on that camera. And do you have any of your photography here?
Yes.
So let's take a 5-minute walk, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
Okay. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I really appreciate you.
Raise enough money for him to come.
Do you know what format he uses? I think he's Canon.
I don't know what cameras because I don't really care. But he's a small. He uses a 35 millimeter, the equivalent to a 35 millimeter that I'm used to.
He pulls it off, right?
Yeah. This is the cover of his book called Genesis. This is in Alaska, and it's a remarkable photograph to me. It's very rich in tone and color, and the light is just memorable. If I was standing there and saw this, I would just be speechless.
Yeah.
So for him to share it with me, it makes my day. And it's the cover of his book.
What are the series in great photographers like this? How many are in the original series?
Number of prints or the whole series?
Number of prints, yes. No, of a single
It's a
print.
fair question.
Yeah.
Sebastian Salgado was one of the last of the old school that didn't number his photographs. They're not numbered on there, one of whatever. Mm-hmm. So there are probably about 250 of these originals in existence. Mm-hmm. And whereas nowadays, younger photographers are putting their additions on the photograph. One of 50, one of 30, two,
right,
whatever.
Yeah.
He uses the price structure. He'll raise the price on anything that starts to sell too much. Mm. So all his photographs have a range of prices.
So he doesn't limit to 100 prints and boom, you can't buy one.
No.
Right.
No.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is actually
really
in a way.
Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? When you get him here, I want to come down that weekend.
You better
yeah, we're going to
show
stay
up.
buddies.
You better show up.
We're going to stay buddies.
This is another great picture.
Isn't that incredible?
This is a remarkable shot he did. And you have to remember where he's in a boat. He's cruising around, and he's taking this picture with a remarkable light. And
That's very Disney.
This looks like a Superman home, but it's not. It's all natural.
It is the Fortress of Ice or whatever.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Is this a plane? An airplane?
I don't think so.
No.
It looks like a water plane.
But if you know icebergs constantly flip over. They melt down and flip over, completely flip over.
Wow.
So if you were following the whole life of this thing, it would go through a series of flipping over. So yeah, and that room up there I just love. But the quality of light.
Yeah.
No two prints are exactly alike. If you could, I have a smaller print of this somewhere in this gallery that you could see that it's just different. This picture I love. He did this in what I call Bombay, but it's the two trains unloading, all the people coming to work wearing the same outfits, clothes. They're all blurred, but there are two people in this picture, a man and a woman who are not, and that's what it's about. It's about the love. And there's a quote up here. If you get zoom in close enough, you can see there's an ad with a couple in it, and it's made for each other brand.
Oh, sweet.
And I'm sure he did that.
So they're the ones that met online, and they're coming to meet each other.
That's right.
In the midst of the whole Koina Skazi.
Yeah. And actually, I love the two numbers too. It's 619 and 635. Both of them add up to 18 or 15. There's another one was, shot from a boat.
Look at the freaking
Look at the water.
dude jumping.
Yeah.
The dude jumping.
Well, we like to
having
kid around and talk about all the other penguins. They're going back.
fun.
That's too cold.
That guy's all the way there. And this guy.
This is a great one, I think. Again, he would sit sometimes for hours before he would take a photograph.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few pictures you're not maybe going to be able to see it, but if you went in close on the eye, you could see him as in this lower eye. You'll see a silhouette of a man taking a picture.
do. That's cool.
And that's him. He did not like to be present.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
This is the last one I have out
Yeah.
of Salgados of Brazil. It's just beautiful.
Just incredible.
Lovely.
Yeah. Now the more pictures you look at by him, the more amazed you become with him.
Amazing.
He's just remarkable.
I just want
My bad songs I can't see. I trust you. We could always have our current exhibition up in this room, and this is Michael Kenner's exhibit, which he all along this wall, which is just Michael's a remarkable photographer and likes to work with small. Michael's worked at night, he works long exposures.
How old is Michael now?
70.
70? That's good.
Yeah. And this show is a lot about trees. I would just point out this hall because this is a rather classic hall. This is Cusco Children by Irving Penn and Walk in Paradise Garden by W. Eugene Smith. That's one of the largest prints he ever did of that photograph of those two children.
Sweet.
And the bottom photograph by Penn, he printed it on platinum and palladium.
Is that palladium?
It's a mix of platinum and palladium.
Huge.
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 And
amazing.
he only made 42 prints of that. And if you saw all 42 lined up, you wouldn't believe the range of the brightness, darkness, everything.
And where does the
That's
majority...
probably one of my favorite pictures of all time.
Yeah.
Hang on, hold your hand up there. There you go. Got it.
But you could also see in this hallway all these other legends from artists, great artists, an early Civil War picture, the great Arthur Rothstein, artist, Doris Ullman, who I love, Margaret Burke White, taken in Russia.
Oh, fantastic.
You know what I can help?
Okay.
George Honegger of Josephine Baker.
Wow.
And then as you go up the hall, as you go up there.
Oh, wow.
go along,
Yeah. This is solid.
This is John Sawdeck.
I'm good, right?
Yeah, you're good. He hand painted these photographs.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. This is a black and white photograph that he hand painted. And
Wow.
many of his photographs were hand painted. And as you work your way up, this is
Whoops.
Robert Mapplethorpe of
Wow.
This is a Mapplethorpe photograph of Isabella Rossellini.
Oh, Isabella Rossellini.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite pictures of his.
It's beautiful.
And then as you work your way up on the left wall, you'll find all Helmut Newton photographs.
We'll go take a walk when we release you. Let's see your photography.
And briefly in this room, I'll point out the two original Cartier-Bresson.
Wow, Cartier-Bresson.
Up here you have the Edward S. Curtis from North American Indians. Those are printed on glass, backed in gold. Those are his original frames.
Those are really,
And those are magnificent.
yeah.
And this is an Ancelina that you probably won't ever see because he only made 6 of them this size.
Is that 20 by 24?
Oh, it's bigger than 20 by 24.
Wow.
And 2 of the 6 went down in fire.
Oh,
The owner's houses burned down. So we're lucky to have it. We love it, and it's beautiful.
Tell us about
Goodman.
Jerry.
Jerry was one of the greatest people I ever knew, and he was a great teacher and he shared everything with anyone who was around him. and it's a printmaker. His prints just glow. They almost glow in the dark. And there are multiple images. This is long before, long before photo. What do you call it? Photo shop. Long before. He had the dark print that had 6 enlargers. He would take one piece of paper and go from larger to larger to larger until he wound up with all the images on one piece of paper, seamlessly, as if he took a picture of somebody just standing.
Well, he would stop it. I was in a workshop with him in Sun Valley Art Institute with Peter Delorey, and Jerry would stop it in water, not in stop bath, and then go to the next enlarger with the red filter on it, and he would put the lady in the window, and then he would take the filter off and use his hands, and he would burn it in, and then he'd go stop it in water again, go to the third enlarger.
Jerry was remarkable.
How did he dance and make like several copies of the same one?
You were taking pictures, I think, of these two. These are by Elliot Irwin. He's now 95 years old.
Irwin. Wow, we gotta get an interview with Irwin.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Let's get Irwin.
Senator John Lawson, one of the great photographers here in New Orleans. So I'll just show you a few.
Okay.
Oh, sweet.
I'm always photographing, even when I fly on a plane.
Yeah.
And are you shooting film?
Yeah, always.
Leica? Necroman.
Oh, look at that.
I got my Necroman.
This is when I traveled the country by train for a year. It's a red, white, and blue bicentennial project I was on. See, that's the same as that one.
Yeah, no, I recognized
Oh, yeah.
it. Yeah, it's incredible.
Whoa. This is right here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh, some of those beauty big trees. Yeah. These are oaks?
Live oak trees.
Wow.
More.
Oh, great.
That's beautiful.
That's an amazing moment.
Yeah.
To witness.
I mean,
And
beautiful.
record. And boom, it's gone like that.
Are you still in the darkroom?
No, I have an assistant now. The last 10 years is
With doing your printing?
doing my.
And these are silver?
These are all silver gelatin.
Wow.
Another great photograph from the 70s.
Oh, look at that.
Is that his buddy?
Spiritually, but he's dead.
Right, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard this very strange noise from my dog. I turned around and saw this scene.
Oh, my word. I'm so sorry.
It was a sad moment, but it
Yeah.
was an amazing photographic.
Wow.
Split in half, the
Yeah.
noose, and then he got my shadow even in there. Credit trilogy.
Wow.
This is a cover of one of my books.
Can you hold that photograph up for me? Yeah, let's look back at me. Look back at me. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
Hang on.
This is how I sign my photographs.
Got it.
That's right.
It takes a lot of time, but it's well worth it to me.
Yeah. And to the person who owns
Yeah,
it.
to
Yeah.
have something.
It means so much. Yeah.
Most do. This is the photo of Hurricane Katrina. Here in New Orleans, 2005. Trash your city, trash yourself. New Orleans, imagine it clean.
Wow.
This is from a great Mardi Gras fund. This is the Preservation Hall check.
Love my car glass.
Should we go to Preservation Hall?
No,
Yeah,
there's
I would go.
amazing
Okay.
things in
Yeah, I
there
would.
for sure.
I don't care if it seems touristy or not. It's still what it is. They do not change it. It's from when I was on the Freedom Train traveling down the United States. It's in Tulsa. We were
Really?
down the tracks at 45, 50 miles an hour when I saw this. People would wait for hours to see us come by.
Yeah. Check it out. Wow.
Is that in the window?
That's this man. That's his reflection.
Oh, right.
Oh, my word.
There's only one man. one person.
Yeah. That's...
Look, he's even got his scepter.
Yeah. That's a remarkable moment.
Yeah.
And again, I love taking pictures from the air, so it's just outside of New Orleans.
Look at that. Look at the water.
We're almost totally warm. People don't realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. You are.
New Orleans is like right over
And so much of it is underground as well. It's just incredible.
We're 3 feet above sea level right here, so we're high.
Yeah.
Very high.
That's
most of the seasons. I spent years photographing rock and roll concerts.
Is that Spotlights?
This is Spotlights.
Wow.
1977. It's Led Zeppelin. This is Jimmy Page.
Oh, nice.
This is the first night the Superdome was open.
Oh my God.
This is Paul McCartney.
Oh, that's incredible.
The first photograph I ever sold was Ansel Adams, and it was in 1974 or 5. And as I'm framing it, I broke the glass,
Oh, no.
and it left little bitty marks on the picture,
Oh,
and I just couldn't deliver.
yeah.
I spent a whole night but I couldn't, and I had to buy it and keep it, and I eventually sold it because 20 or 30 years later, they weren't that significant.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.